Hello and welcome to Business on the Wire. Election season is on. Tamil Nadu is one of the states that goes to vote early this month. And of course, it is seen as a contest between the two large Dravidian parties, DMK on the one side and the incumbent AIA DMK on the other. It's also the first time elections will be held without the two legends from both parties, M. Karunanidhi and Jayalalitha. Of course, the contest is now between the two who see themselves as the rightful heirs to both those posts. So we have a contest between Mr. Palaniswamy of AIADMK, Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu, and on the other side, there's MK Stalin of DMK, who must prove both to his family and to the party that he is the legitimate heir to the legacy that Karunanidhi set up. What are the key issues for Tamil Nadu, and what role do the two national parties play, both of whom are allying with either of the Dravidian parties in this context? Joining me to talk about that is the MP from Shivaganga and member of the Congress party, Karthi Chidambaram. The Congress, of course, is allying with the DMK in the state elections in Tamil Nadu. Karthi, thank you for joining in and speaking with me. Several polls, including Tanti TV, which a lot of people quote, seem to be pointing to a clean win for the DMK Congress alliance. How are you feeling about your chances?
We think we're going to have a very decisive victory in Tamil Nadu for our alliance. The DMK Congress alliance is going to score a very handsome victory. In fact, I tweeted yesterday saying that this might actually be a repeat of 1996 or it might be a repeat of 2019. 1996, the alliance won all but 7 seats in the assembly. And if you extrapolated the results of the 2019 parliamentary election, we won 218 out of 234 seats. So I think this is going to be a big win, and that's the sense I'm getting as I travel across the state, meet our party workers, the alliance workers, and the people, because I've been campaigning extensively as well. All the polls point in the same direction. So, and that is also reflecting the mood of the people. The people want a change of regime in Tamil Nadu, and they want a government which does not have the scent, stain, or shadow of the BJP.
It's equally true, though, Karthi, that there is still a high degree of popularity for the chief minister himself, for Mr. Palaniswamy. I mean, and there is a perception for the DMK of, corruption that has existed for many years. How do you counter that? The fact that there is still sentiment which is pro the chief minister, even though there may be an anti-BJP wave. I take that point from you. But how do you counter that?
No, I think this is completely a mistaken notion that this chief minister is some sort of a mass leader. And this chief minister is an accidental chief minister. Nobody even knew he existed before he actually became chief minister, while he crawled under the table to fall at Sasikala's feet to become chief minister. I don't know whether you have seen that iconic video where he's actually crawling under a table to go and prostrate before her feet when he was announced as chief minister. This is a complete misnomer. He's no mass leader. There is no great brand equity he has. And the performance of the ADMK government, and you must take it in total of 10 years, because the government has been there since 2011, has hardly had any resonance in the ground, because most basic services are lacking to the common people, and people want a regime change. So I think you're overestimating his personal popularity or his pull, which I don't think exists.
Is it not true, though, that there is not really an anti-AIADMK wave, but there is certainly an anti-BJP sentiment? I mean, in that sense, you guys, the Congress and the BJP are equally pitted. I mean, you have the same number of seats, so it could be, they're as much of a liability as you may be an asset to the DMK. Would you say the BJP issue is frankly incidental to what happens between the DMK and AIADMK?
The BJP's alliance is a factor, no doubt about that it's a huge drag on the ADMK. I agree with that completely. But that's not the only reason why people want a regime change. People want a regime change because they want a government which does not, which stands up for the rights of the Tamil people, which actually delivers on the ground. And the delivery on the ground, that's what you really need to measure. You go to the ration shops today, the quality of the rice supplied is very poor. I mean, take for example, the assembly constituency where I am, which falls within my parliament, called Karaikudi. They have given a tender for 112 crores to lay a drainage system on the streets. It's woefully done. The quality is so substandard. There are pit holes everywhere, pit holes and potholes everywhere. People are falling all the time, every day, and breaking their wrists and back. And this same company has been given the tender throughout Tamil Nadu. This is just one example I'm giving. So there is rampant corruption, particularly crony capitalism, in terms of awarding public contracts to their favorite companies, and the delivery of these public services have been really, really shoddy. So don't let's disabuse ourselves of this notion that only the BJP is pulling down the ADMK. The ADMK is getting pulled down for various reasons, and the BJP is also another reason it's getting pulled down.
So 5 constituencies for you and 5 constituencies for the BJP, and of course the Kanyakumari Lok Sabha seat as well. What value does
No. We are contesting 20. We are contesting 25 seats in Tamil Nadu.
25 seats, yeah.
We are contesting 25 assembly seats in Tamil Nadu.
What value does the Congress bring then, Karti, to this
See,
large contest between the two,
See, the Congress is not an addition to an alliance. It's a multiplier. Whenever the Congress contests by itself, it scores a certain amount of votes. But the minute it's part of a large Dravidian formation, it becomes a multiplier. Because what happens is that it gives the secular seal to the alliance. It assures the minorities, the Christians and the Muslims, that this is the alliance which is secular. So they come out in large numbers and the votes consolidate in favor of the alliance. So the Congress adds a greater value than what it does what would it score when it's by itself. So the Congress, gives it a national flavor, a secular seal, and is a multiplier to the alliance. Unlike the BJP, which is a complete drag on the ADMK alliance right now.
What it has not given in the past, though, Karti, is many wins. I mean, from the 25 that are allocated to you, what is the level of confidence in terms of how many the Congress can win?
See, on a conservative level, I think we're going to win at least 20. On a reasonably optimistic level, 22. And if some projections work, it might even go greater than 22. It might even reach 25. So we won't fall short of 20 this time. See, while you always talk about strike rates, you conveniently forget the fact that we contested 9 seats for Parliament in 2019 and we won 8 of those 9 seats. Why isn't that factored into this great strike rate calculation? I understand what happened in 2011 and 16, but why is 2019 not counted? And anyway, I think we'll slay this bogey of strike rate on May 2nd in Tamil Nadu.
Any rancor in that case on the seat allocation? I mean, it's an open secret that there were some differences between the two allies in terms of seat allocation for the Congress.
You see, there are only 234 seats. Even if God was to come and divide the seats, he can't add the 235th seat. And large political parties have claimants in each and every seat. So always seat allocation is a give and take. There will be competing demands on a seat. In fact, that's very healthy. To have competing demands on a seat within the party and among parties is very, very healthy. It says that the parties are very, very robust and are full of vitality in those areas. So that's a normal process. And the Congress and the DMK are not forming an alliance for the first time. We've gone through this many, many times. And there will always be this expectations and what can be actually accommodated. And there are only 234 seats. And you have to understand, from the last election of 2016 to now, newer parties have come into our alliance. So we had to definitely, temper down our expectations when the number of seats we took. So that's only fair. And I think that debate is over. Now the candidates have filed the nomination. We are 5 days away from polling. So, we're really focused on getting all our 25 candidates elected right now.
Some of that equanimity seems to be visible within the senior leadership in Tamil Nadu, Karti, but it becomes a problem when there is rancor within the cadre level. And it looked like there were quite a few protests from both sides, from the DMK in terms of allocation of seats, from the Congress.
As I said,
about cadre level, apprehension or cadre level movement.
That will always happen in seat allocation, because once a party is allotted a seat, the alliance partner would always feel that why weren't we allotted this particular seat? What happens to our cadre who are vying for this seat? But that all gets settled once the nomination process starts. That is all well settled now. There is no issues, none whatsoever. Everybody is focused on winning the election for the alliance. That always happens in every election. I mean, for example, I'm sure the ADMK is quite miffed that they were not allotted the Karaikudi seat and they were given to the perennial loser, the BJP here. And in fact, the district secretary of the ADMK had to move, even though this is his home seat, he had to move to the next constituency. I'm sure he's quite upset about that. I'm sure the ADMK cadre are upset about that. This happens in all alliances. When you have multiple parties in alliance, you can't satisfy everybody. Somebody will be disappointed, but people get over the disappointment rather quickly and start pulling their weight for their alliance as the election progresses.
And you don't expect to see any backlash because of Mr. Raja's statement that has been seen as quite negative and perhaps costing the DMK seats?
No, not at all. You see, what he said was unfortunate, and he's apologized for it. The matter ends there. And you got to understand that he is not the leader of the DMK. I mean, if the leader of the DMK is Mr. Stalin. His word is final. And once he has clarified about the statement and has also urged his junior colleague to apologize and to retract, and that ends the matter. Anyway, I think you're all forgetting the kind of speeches and statements the ADMK makes. Maybe they don't have the same kind of resonance with the Delhi media, but they're not necessarily paragons of virtue and parliamentary procedure either.
No, I didn't say they are, but one wrong doesn't make another wrong, right, Karti?
I'm not justifying what Mr. Raja says. He's apologized, he's retracted, and the matter ends right there. That's not an election issue in Tamil Nadu. The election issue is not about comparative statements made by mid-level or higher ranking members of either parties. It's only about what those parties stand for and what the chiefs of each party says and what the party's manifesto says and what they believe in and what they think are the issues of Tamil Nadu. These are not issues of election.
I want to talk about a couple of interesting seats, Karti, especially the Coimbatore South seat, where the Congress is pretty much going against one Kamal and another Kamal, where it's Kamal Hassan and there is the BJP as well. It looks like there is some anti-incumbency over there. How do you reckon the Congress's chances are, particularly given a high-profile candidate like Kamal Hassan contesting from there?
See, Kamal Hassan obviously attracts a lot of media attention. For him being who he is, he will naturally attract a lot of media attention. But I think that the electorate of Coimbatore must be aware that Kamal Hassan will never show up to the constituency after he loses, for sure, because that's been the trend for all these celebrity candidates. Once they lose a seat, they never go back to the seat. They only congregate for elections and they disperse after elections. That is true for most cine stars who come into politics, unless they are the leaders of political parties like Jayalalitha was or MGR was. All the other cine stars are just there, particularly when they lose, they don't show up. So I think people of Coimbatore know that Mr. Kamal Hassan has no ties, none whatsoever, to that particular seat. And he's not going to have any long-term relationship with that seat. He's not going to come and serve the constituents there. Whereas the Congress candidate is a resident and a voter of that particular Coimbatore seat. He lives there. He's worked there at the ward level. He's a functionary. He was a functionary of the Youth Congress. Now he's a functionary of the parent body. So win or lose, he's going to be there to serve the people in some form or the other in terms of political activity. Whereas Kamala Hassan, he won't win, and when he doesn't win, he's not going to show up there at all. I think people will make the distinction. They will choose somebody who's local and who's able to serve them continuously.
You're not concerned that he might pull some of the anti-BJP vote?
He might also be pulling some of the pro-BJP votes because he also appeals to a certain demographic which at times votes to the BJP as well. So he might actually be helping us. I mean, he might actually be helping us. But I can confidently say that his political party and his formation will not win a single seat in Tamil Nadu. And you can record this and play this on May 2nd. They will not win a single seat in Tamil Nadu.
Speaking of cine stars, how do you read the centre's decision to award the Dada Saheb Phalke Award to Rajinikanth for 2019?
I mean, Rajinikanth is a senior movie star and I think he deserves his award. But if the BJP always wants to do some backhand politics because of this, they're sadly mistaken. They wanted Rajinikanth first to start a political party. Now they think that they can buttress his fans by giving him an award. Yeah, his award is well deserved. I congratulate him for getting that award, but that will have no impact on whatsoever to the elections which are going to take place on coming Tuesday.
You were pushing as well, Karti, for a senior Congress face to contest from the Kanyakumari Lok Sabha seat. Why did Priyanka Gandhi choose not to contest?
I don't know why she chose not to contest, because perhaps she wants to travel around other states. Maybe she thinks that she's better serving the party by being in the organization and rather coming to parliament. And that's her decision, and I respect that. But I think it would have been a great boost for the party and for our alliance if she had chosen to contest in Kanyakumari. But she's coming to Kanyakumari to campaign. And I'm very, very certain that our candidate, who's a young candidate, will win in Kanyakumari.
Let's talk for a second about some of the manifesto issues, though, Karti. I mean, first for the Congress and then for the DMK. Mr. Aragiri released the Congress manifesto. Some of it actually reads quite close to your perceived rivals. I mean, closing liquor shops, bringing in a law to protect intercaste marriages. What gives?
No, I think you should take only the DMK's manifesto as the primary document because they are the ones who are going to be forming the government. The Congress manifesto is only a document of intent and it's fully a supporting document. Really, the document which matters is only the DMK's manifesto.
Okay, so let's talk about the DMK document, which says they're going to bring in a law to reserve 75% of jobs in the state for Tamils. You've already seen the kind of reaction industry has had to this move by the Haryana government, which seems quite counterintuitive in terms of encouraging a more cosmopolitan mix or encouraging the notion of sexual.
I understand that. I understand that this is not necessarily pro industry, the free movement of labor. I don't know whether it can actually have the force of the law, but maybe you should just treat it as an intent to encourage businesses to hire more locally. But whether it will stand the scrutiny of the law can be tested by the Haryana proposition itself. But the intent, but there is a desire for people in rural Tamil Nadu and in smaller towns that jobs are guaranteed for Tamil itself. For example, here in the postal department, they are posting people I know it's in central service, but they're posting people who have no knowledge of Tamil. They have no knowledge of written or spoken knowledge of Tamil are getting posted in the postal department in Tamil Nadu. How are they going to work in the postal department? So I think there is a need to be sensitive to make sure that locals get employed here more. And I think if that sentiment is there in other states, I understand that as well. But whether it can have the full force of whether private sector can be forced in that manner, whether you can have a law, that has to be tested in the courts.
Does it seem like the best decision, though, Karti, for a state that is running the highest revenue deficit at this point? I mean, a bulk of your economy is dependent on the services side for Tamil Nadu, that is. It seems counterintuitive, like I said, to be pitting for this kind of industry.
I don't think this is the cornerstone of the DMK's manifesto. This is not the cornerstone of the DMK's manifesto. I don't think it should be. I mean, it's a large, voluminous document, and I think you must read it more as an intent and as some sort of an encouragement for businesses to hire locally, rather than as something which is set in stone, which is going to be anti-market and anti-free market. Because Tamil Nadu is quite a free market state, and it will remain a free market state.
As you travel through the state, what is it that you see as core issues that seem to be emerging, Karti, at this point for the...
I think delivery of services. You see, I think during the lockdown, I think the ADMK and also the BJP missed out on doing direct cash transfers. I think that was a huge mistake. It has a huge impact on the liquidity of the people here, and they should have done a substantial cash transfer to small businesses and individuals, and they failed to do so. And in terms of infrastructure itself, of village infrastructure, particularly roads and water and everything, they have completely neglected that. So there is a lot of angst at the rural level and this lack of infrastructure. And in terms of industry, there's no big boom. While they had this global investor conference and they made some huge announcements, none of it is actually fructified into actual investments and actual job creation. And that is also a big factor. And there is this anger and distaste for the BJP and the BJP's brand of politics, and the fact that they are, coming under the cloak of the ADMK is also irking and irritating people to a great extent. That is a big issue of the election.
So between 20 to 22 seats for the Congress, and how many for the combine, you think? What is your estimate of what we may land up with on counting day?
I think we would possibly do 180 if the momentum is only going to gather more pace as we go along towards polling. We could even reach 200 plus.
200 plus?
200 plus. 180 to start with, and maybe end up 200 plus.
Okay. One final question, Karti, which is, stepping away from Tamil Nadu and the elections over there. You would have seen the letter written by the Trinamool Congress chairperson asking for all opposition parties to unite and counter the BJP. What is the Congress's stand and belief in that regard? And how is it that, you plan to unite, if at all, amongst the opposition parties?
I mean, this is a decision of the Congress leadership, and that's way beyond my pay grade. I really can't say, but I think it would be a good idea for the opposition forces to unite, because India is going through a very perilous time right now. And one must understand that the BJP's vote share is only about 30 to 35% nationally. And they don't have the majority of the Indians backing them. In fact, the majority of Indians do not vote for the BJP. And it is essential for all those political parties and social forces and political forces to come together. I think it's a good move, good move by the Chief Minister of Bengal. But how the Congress will formally react, I don't know. But this is something which we should seriously consider. And the Congress should, in fact, be the nucleus for this kind of formation.
Are you worried too about what Bengal portends to Karti, just in terms of the degree of violence and the nature of how campaigning has probably hit a new low between both the opposing parties there?
Yes, it does worry me. I mean, compared to what the elections were used to in Tamil Nadu is very, very peaceful. We hardly have any kinds of violence here. So it does worry me. But this is the kind of toxicity which the BJP infuses into state elections. So the blame squarely lays with the BJP for this aggressive poaching, of encouraging people to cross parties and to bring in a certain narrative into the elections which divide societies. So this is the poison which the BJP is injecting into all states, and that's even more reason why all other forces which are progressive and secular and liberal, which must band together to counter this.
I wish you luck, Karti, and I hope we can speak again.
Thank you.
Where we see
what the
tally finally stands at. Thank you for speaking with me.
To receive instant updates on all videos from The Wire, click the subscribe button and hit the bell icon. Pay to support independent journalism. Click the link in the description and choose the amount you want to pay.